Tottenham TV back here in the studio. It's Tottenham 1, Fulham 1. This is the match review show. We're going to go through into the nitty gritty in what happened on that pitch yesterday. Sim was there at the stadium yesterday. We'll start off with the match review. We may as well just get straight into it. So what was the vibe like in the stadium yesterday?
I think it was a typical 1:30 or whatever, early kickoff on a Sunday. People still kind of getting over their hangovers from Saturday, and it wasn't kind of the electric atmosphere that we all look forward to. I think we know at this stadium, to be honest, when we have games which, I mean, even against top teams, it's been similar, but usually games against teams like Fulham and not big games, essentially, the atmosphere wasn't great. And I think yesterday was definitely a case of that. And it never really got going. Even the Spurs, with the trumpet before the game wasn't really as loud as it usually is before, we're leading into kickoff. So it was a bit disappointing. Definitely a lot of frustration boiling over. I would say there was, at half time, there wasn't too many disgruntlement or boos. I think everyone was probably just relieved to be going in at 0-0 because we definitely should have been behind. And then second half, it was a weird one, second half, because we didn't deserve anything out of the game. We definitely should have lost, but you in a weird way, part of you comes out that second half as well very disappointed we didn't win, because we did take the lead, and also we spent 15 minutes playing against 10 men. So we did have a couple of opportunities on the face of it that we could have won the game on that side, in terms of that the frustration of the fans that we didn't get anything, because we did take the lead, with half an hour to go, 25 minutes to go.
Yeah,
we took the lead, and then with 10 minutes to go, plus there was 7 minutes added on time, they get a man sent off, Tom Kearney, and you think, 17 minutes essentially to get a winner, and we didn't really hurt Fulham at that point. I don't remember any chances we had after the 10 men. So there was a lot of frustration at full time. There was quite a lot of boos at full time, and I think Ange after the game sounded quite annoyed that the fact that there was such boos at full time. But I think I can understand the fans' frustration, because 3 games winless at home, we just can't seem to catch any consistency at the moment this season. We've only won consecutive games once, which was when we beat Brentford and Man United back to back in the Premier League, that is, anyway. And every time we seem to be turning a corner, we turn the corner the other way, and we again, it was another performance where it was very similar to performances where we have dropped points against the likes of Palace and Ipswich. And those kind of performances where we definitely looked leggy. We didn't seem to have much energy, especially when it came to tracking back and being defensive. I think at times we were getting into position, but far too often Fulham, even when we got into position, Fulham were able to carve out opportunities time and time again. And Forster was probably our best player on the day with the amount of saves he made, and some really good saves. So I think there was a lot of frustration in the ground. I think everyone was frustrated with what we were seeing on the pitch, and the fact that we couldn't seem to gain any sort of momentum on the day. I did feel for Ange a bit, to be honest, because losing Solanke before the game, feeling the need he had to rest Decky to keep him fresh for games coming up, given the fact that he's played every minute. I kind of understood that. But I think as well, how he managed the game, especially the changes he made with 10 minutes to go, when they went down to 10 men, I didn't understand them. I thought they were bad changes. And in fact, I think that bore out with how we responded with them going down to 10 men, and how we lacked any threat. And I think a lot of that was down to the changes Ange made. And I think he made a big mistake in that moment, because I think he could have made different changes to positively impact the game, in a sense that put pressure on Fulham, actually flood the box, try and ask different questions. But the changes he made actually blunted us, I felt. And that was a big shame. But yeah, very disappointing performance. And look, a draw flattered us. That's the truth.
Yeah, that's the way I saw it when, finishing the watch along yesterday. I was like, I wasn't happy to get away with the draw, but I was like, this is with the way the game went, we deserve to lose. The amount of chances that Fulham were creating completely destroyed us, particularly down our right hand side, Pedro Porro's side. I mean, Anthony Robertson and And even Reece Nelson at times were having a bit of a field day down that side. They really were. And Porro could do nothing to stem that tide. It looked like, I don't know if he was carrying an injury or something from when he nearly did the splits. I don't know if that was in the first half or the second half. But yeah, he didn't look himself, Porro. And that's 2 games in a row now where I feel like he's been really poor. And I was saying, yes, in the build up to this game, I want to see Spence come on in this game.
He was going to come on, and then he decided not to.
I want to see him start. I mean, I wanted to see him start.
He was stripped off. I don't know if you saw it on the.
No, I know I didn't see it, but I got told he was stripped off when the red card happened, and then
he got told
to sit down. But I mean, it was kind of little. It wasn't little too late, but I don't think. I think Spence should have started the game because Porro was either carrying an injury from the knock or he was super tired. Like he just wasn't himself by any stretch of the imagination in this game and on the game on Thursday. So I think it was the wrong decision to start Porro in this game and not start Spence. And as well, Porro was just getting, like I said, absolutely destroyed. And
I don't think it would have changed if Spence was there because I think Robinson has such an engine.
So does Spence.
No, but I'm saying it wasn't Porro versus Robinson. It was Porro versus Nelson and Robinson every single time. Every time it was 2-on-1, and Johnson wasn't helping him pretty much. I don't remember too often Johnson was tracking back, and I understand that because I understand he doesn't track back, but I understand he's struggling to do so because Robinson has like a Decky kind of running capacity where he can just run all day, and he's got incredible pace down that left-hand side. And every time they went down the left, there was 2-on-1 essentially, and Porro had 2 men to deal with. And yes, he didn't cover himself in glory on many occasions in that, but I don't think Spence would have dealt with that 2-on-1 much better than Porro did, in my opinion.
Well, the reason why I think he would have, I'm not saying they wouldn't have had joy down that side if Spence was playing, because they probably would have. But first of all, he's more fresh to deal with it. And also going down the other end, Porro, anytime he got into any promising situation, he took the shot on, and he made the wrong decision every time when there was runners off him. And I think Spence, fresh, chomping at the bit to get on the pitch, I just thought it would have freshened up that right-hand side a bit more, and maybe it would have stemmed the tide a little bit. I'm sure that, you know, Robinson would have got in a couple of times, but maybe not as many times as he did. And when things are going wrong, you've got to change things in a positive light, and you've got to see something's going wrong, and he didn't do anything and to really change the momentum of the game. That was the worrying thing for me. And I would have started Spence, like I said. I don't know if it would have changed the course of the game, but you want fresh players on, and Porro just was not fresh. He looked leggy throughout the whole game pretty much. And when you've got a leggy player coming up against Anthony Robertson and Reece Nelson, you know, it's never going to work. So at least have someone fresh there.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, he's kept Spence here, right? He decided not to sell him, and he's said he's going to be an option for us. And he just hasn't used him like that. And especially leaving him out of the Europa League squad, that was obviously a frustration in itself, because you've left him out of you've not let him get on loan, or you haven't sold him. You've told, all the narrative is, you've told the fans this guy is going to be our backup fullback, or one of our backup fullbacks this season. And if you're not going to play him in Europa League, then you have to play him in the league or the cup. And he hasn't done it. Well, I know he didn't even start him against Coventry. He had to come on, didn't he?
He came on, yeah.
Has he started at all? He hasn't started at all this season, has he? Not one game. So, look, I'm not in training. I don't know if Spence isn't, you know, maybe he's not doing what Ange needs him to do or whatever. And maybe if I spoke to Ange and one-on-one and I asked him this question, he can give me a good answer about why he's not starting. But as fans, when we're seeing that Udogie and Porro clearly being run into the ground, and Spence is getting very little game time, and we're being told he's an option, then it is frustrating that we're not seeing more of him. And and again on Thursday, if he doesn't start on Thursday, which I think he should, just because we've got a big game against Chelsea on Sunday, and the fact that Porro and Udogie, both of them at the moment, you know, could do with a break, at least one of them anyway. Like, if you're not going to play him when we have this run of games, and we've got games every few days coming thick and fast, and he's our backup fullback, then clearly you don't trust him, and clearly he shouldn't be here if you're not going to play him in these situations. So I think that's the frustration at the moment. And and the reality is, when he's come in, he's done pretty well. It's not like when he's come in, he hasn't looked good. And I think sometimes I mean, they didn't get much chances before this anyway, but in the few minutes he got when like Conte was here and stuff, he didn't look great. But like when, albeit that was a very small sample size, when he has come in for Ange, he's looked good. Like he scored against Coventry. He played very well when he came on against Man United. He came on for what against Man City. Was it in the cup or was it in both games he came on? I think he definitely in the league game he came on for a few minutes. He's looked all right. Like he hasn't looked out of place. He's actually contributed. And obviously he got that goal against Coventry, which kept us in the cup. It was a big moment and had a very good half. So, look, I understand that Porro and Udogie are our first choice and they're when they're both on their best form. They're two very good fullbacks and he wants them there as much as possible. But at the end of the day, I don't know who to blame if it's he's made the decision to keep Spence here or is it a club decision to keep him here, but the decision's been made. He's been talking about Spence, in a pre-season about his attitude, how good it is and all this kind of stuff. So I have to assume that Ange has agreed to keep Spence here and he wanted him here. And if that's the case, I have to hold him accountable if he's going to use him as little as he has, especially when our fullbacks are clearly not looking at their best at the moment.
Yeah, and he's bemoaned the fact after the game yesterday about how tiny the squad is at the moment with the injuries, and he commended all the players yesterday about the effort that they're putting in. Well, we've got a player there who's completely fresh, who's barely played a minute this season, and he's been fit for at least 2-3 weeks now. So there's no reason not to put him in, especially when you're looking at how tired Porro's looking at the moment. And I just don't get it. I don't get how you got a player sitting there and just complaining about the effort that these players are putting in and how tiny the squad is. And he was able to put Kulusevski on the bench yesterday, but you couldn't put Porro on the bench when there's a clear, able deputy ready to come in. So it just doesn't make sense to me. And
unless he doesn't think he's able.
Well, if he didn't think he's able, then he should have sold him in the summer when the offers were coming in. Mm-hmm. So it's on Ange for me. But look, every time he stepped in, like you say, he's done really well. So there's nothing to tell me that Spence shouldn't be getting the go. He should be. But when I saw the lineups yesterday, it was a big frustration. Obviously, Solanke was pulled out just before the game, and Kulusevski as well, because I did get the feeling, actually, after the comments Ange was making on Kulusevski saying, we're going to have to manage his minutes, he's playing a lot of football. I did kind of feel like that maybe he is going to get rested. But if you take out Kulusevski and you take out Solanke out of the team, you're taking out a lot of the aggression from the forward line. And I think that showed yesterday, because you had Son in the middle, Timo Werner out on the left, you had Brendan Johnson on the right, and they just couldn't replicate the aggression that Dom Solanke. I mean, we had little to no presence up there to hold up the ball. And you have our two biggest workhorses off the pitch. And I think that showed massively yesterday in the forward line. Son, as much as I love him, I don't think he could hold up the ball. I don't think he had a good game by any stretch of the imagination. I think in the front line and the forward line, actually, our best performer was probably Timo Werner. And it was actually a shock to me that he took off Timo, because he looked like our only route to a goal when he was on the pitch. Brilliant cross to find Brendan Johnson at the back post. And I felt if a goal was going to come, Timo Werner was going to be the source to that. And I was actually really shocked that he took him off at the time that he took him off. So I thought that was more signs of poor game management and poor decisions from Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah, I felt... look, I don't think Timo played particularly well, to be honest, apart from... Obviously, he got a brilliant assist, but apart from that, he set up Son with a good chance, but obviously he was landed on a plate for him. He did well to give it to Son. I just felt the front three lacked any sort of ability to hold on to the ball. So it led to a high number of turnovers, and more turnovers than we usually have in games like this. Even against, maybe not Palace, but even against, like a game like Ipswich, there wasn't as many turnovers in that game as there was in this game. And that was because when we had the ball, and I did feel for players like Sarr and Maddison at points, because they were giving the ball off to people like Brennan and Timo and Son, and trying to build up some sort of passing moves and trying to build up our play from the middle. And every time it went to the front three, the move broke down pretty much, and they got tackled, they got bullied off the ball. And knowing how we play, when there's a high number of turnovers, very similar to a lot of our games last season when we didn't have a Solanke up front, the number of turnovers was extremely high, and that led to a lot of chaos. It leads to a lot of space to be exploited. It leads to the opposition being able to basically go very direct against us, which Fulham definitely did, and exploit especially the space we had out wide. And when you have those two fullbacks, which they do, which pretty much meant every time they went forward, they were doubling up out wide, and there was a lot of turnovers, it led to a performance where we just couldn't handle what Fulham were throwing at us, and there wasn't much we could change apart from we brought on Djed to go false nine with half an hour, with 20 minutes to go, and I think he did all right when he came on, but again, I think when he came on, I think it was a 1-1 already, wasn't it? I think he just came on after the goal.
Yeah,
I think there wasn't. I don't remember too much happening after, apart from him individually. I did see some stuff from him. He was able to hold on to it. He was able to turn. The problem with Djed is he kept coming way too deep to try and pick up the ball and get involved, because we know how Djed likes to get involved. And the two positions in our system, which sometimes have to not be involved just so they can exploit certain situations, is the wide areas and the forward line and the striker. You see a very consistent basis. Solanke has the least touches in our forward line a lot of the time, and I think Djed coming into that role, he was very much coming into it with the thought process of, I'm going to make the difference, I'm going to be the hero here and try and win the game for Tottenham. But what happened was he was coming way too deep, and it meant, again, we had no presence up front. Every time we were whipping crosses in, there was no one there because he wasn't in the penalty box, and it just led to, as much as I thought he did okay, it didn't lead to anything concrete because we had no presence in the forward line. So I think the lack of Solanke, obviously that's not down to Ange because he was ill. What can he do? And the lack of Djed led to Tottenham turning over the ball way too many times in this game. And I think Fulham exploited that well and ruthlessly whenever they got the ball.
Yeah. I just felt like the majority of decisions that Ange made during the game was completely wrong. I felt like we needed changes at half time because the first half was dreadful. Didn't get it until the 68th minute with 20 minutes to go after Fulham got back into the game. I thought Djed probably should have come on at half time. I thought when the sending off happened, he brings on Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall for Maddison and Sarr. I know Maddison wasn't having a good game, but when they go down to 10 men, surely Maddison should stay on the pitch because he's got that creativity and guile to potentially break them down. And when you bring on Bergvall and Gray, who are good players in their own right, I don't think they have the creativity and guile that James Maddison has. Will Lancashire comes on with 2 minutes left of stoppage time or a minute left of stoppage time. What's he supposed to do? At least when the sending off happens, probably you should bring on a Will Lancashire to give us an extra target man up there. I did not understand why you bring on Gray and Bergvall. Obviously, Gray goes off injured in stoppage time, so he was forced into that change to bring on a Will Lancashire. But I felt the decisions that Ange were making were really, really bizarre.
I agree. I think I didn't have too much of a problem with the Djed one, but I think
Did you not think we needed changes at half time?
Yes, but if he's decided to rest Djed, he's resting him. You know what I mean? So he's not going to just because things aren't going well. I don't think he's going to change it at half time because that's not the rest he clearly thinks he needs. Obviously, he changed it a bit later on, but he's made that, which I don't mind to be honest. But he's made that decision before the game. Djed needs a rest, and I'm going to rest him. So that doesn't mean I'm going to rest him in only if things aren't going well. It means I'm going to rest him. It means we need him for the long haul, and we needed to be fresh for the games coming up. So I'm going to give him a bit of a rest here. So we rested him for 70 minutes as opposed to 45. So I don't know. I understand it as much as a fan, you're frustrated because things aren't going well, and you want your best players on the pitch to change the course of the game. If that's his decision, I'm not going to argue with that. What I would say is when the red card happened. So he had a triple change ready before the red card. They were on the touchline, and they were stripped off, ready to come on. It was Spence, Gray, and Bergvall. Then the red card happens while those three are stripped and ready to come on. So I think the thinking behind the change he was giving was that Fulham were turning over the ball so often that he just needed more legs and energy to come on and combat that right? Because they were countering us, they were winning the ball, and those fullbacks and the wingers were causing all sorts of problems very directly. So we needed more legs to counter that, right? So he's going to bring on Gray, Bergvall, and Spence to counter those legs. Now the red card changes everything, because once they get a man sent off, that you don't have to be as worried about that, because that, and as well, once the red card happens, they bring on 2 defenders. I think they brought on Castagna and they brought on another defender as well at that point. So they've Sessegnon. So they've gone 5 at the back, and they're just going to sit deep and ride out for a point, because they're down to 10 men and they're not going to be too adventurous, I don't think, at that point, to try and win the game as much as they were trying to win the game before. So I think Ange should have reacted to that game state, and at that point, you don't take off Maddison. 100% agree. And whatever you want to say about Maddison, he's always capable of a bit of magic. And even yesterday, he hit the post from a free kick. There was that lovely bit of quick feet on the edge of the area where he earned a free kick, which he hit the top of the wall with. But he was also involved in the goal as well, which was actually a good move. We didn't talk about it. It was actually a good move, the goal that we scored. And so even though he wasn't having his best game, he was still involved in some of our good moments yesterday. So once they go down to 10 men, you need someone like Maddison on the pitch to pick that lock and give that bit of magic, whether it be a pass from deep area or whether it be a long shot or a cross from a wide position. Maddison's capable of that kind of magic. And what it actually caused us 2 problems taking off Maddison. So what happened was we decided he's going to stick to his decision. He's going to take off Maddison, even though they've got a man sent off. Then he brings on Bergvall and Gray. He decides to leave Spence out of it. I'm guessing because of the thought of what I was just saying, because clearly Porro was struggling, but because they've gone down to 10 men, he didn't have to worry too much about Porro running back in position. He had what he needed was quality in the final third, and maybe he banked on Porro to provide that more than Spence. And whether it worked or not, I can understand the logic there. But what happened when the problem with taking off Maddison and not bringing on someone like Lancashire is that with Decky still being at false 9, it meant that Decky felt like he had to be the creative hub of the team, because he didn't feel like Bergvall and Gray or whoever was in the centre mid were up to it, because they're obviously young players and they're not going to be the ones who you can rely on to provide a moment of magic. So Decky had to take it upon himself to basically come deep and be that magician that Maddison could have been if he was there. So if he keeps Maddison on, it means Decky can stay in the penalty area and gobble up any crosses or whatever. But because Maddison went off, it meant Decky, I could see it in him. He kept looking for the ball. He kept coming outside the penalty box to look for the ball and try and create something. But it meant every time he did that, there was no one in the box. And and what happened was there was actually one moment in that period where they were down to 10 men where Son got the ball on the left-hand side, got it on his left foot. I think Decky played out wide to him, got it on his left foot and provided an absolute peach of a cross right into the middle. And there was no one there. The only person who was there was Bergvall, was at the back post, and he's not out mustering anyone in that box. So if you're going to take off Maddison, you have to bring Lancashire on. No excuses. And again, like I said with Spence, they decided not to put Lancashire out on loan. They decided to keep him here. They decided that he was going to be a member of the squad. Richarlison's been out pretty much the whole season. So if you've decided to do that, and as well, again, similar to Spence, when he's got an opportunity, I think he's done all right. Ferencváros, I think he was a threat and he had a couple of chances. Galatasaray, I know he got sent off, but he scored his goal and he had a few chances. He actually was a threat. He was giving their defence some trouble. So bring him on. If you're not going to put him on this moment, this is the perfect moment to put on a striker like Will Lancashire. When you don't have a striker, you don't have a physical threat, you need a goal. They're down to 10 men. They're being pinned back in the penalty box. And basically, you're just asking Lancashire, just try and get on the end of anything here. Like, this is your moment to try and do it. And you have to react to game state. You have to react to the changing moments of what's happening. And I understand maybe when it was 11v11, maybe it wasn't the best time for him. But as soon as that guy gets sent off, that's the perfect time for Lancashire. They're going to be penned back in their box. They're going to be sitting deep. They're going to be putting all their defenders in the penalty area. You need to be overloading that penalty box with players, and you need to be getting people who've got physical traits, physical abilities to challenge them. And Son was going to be able to do it. Bergvall wasn't going to be able to do it. Decky probably could, but because you've taken off Maddison, he feels like he needs to be that number 10 and the number 9, and it meant that we had no one in the box, and that's why we looked so blunt in those final 10 minutes, because we had no one in the penalty box. We were putting a few crosses in, but there was no one there because Decky every time was deep because we didn't have Maddison. He didn't trust Bergvall or Gray to create. And to be fair, Decky was looking creative when he was getting deep, but the reality is he was being creative for no one because he was trying to create for it. He had to create for himself because there was no one in the box. So I think Ange got that completely wrong, in my opinion. Those subs, I didn't understand it. Maybe it made sense 11v11, but as soon as it went 11v10, it made no sense to me. You've got to keep Maddison on. Imagine those last 10 minutes, you have Maddison, Decky, and Lancashire on. Imagine the likelihood we would have had a scoring rather than just having Decky, Bergvall, and Gray. I think the likelihood probably triples at that point that we could maybe get a goal. And I think it completely blunted us, his changes. And I think if I'm playing devil's advocate for Ange, what I'm guessing is he had those changes in mind before the sending off, and he didn't just want to change his mind just because there's a red card, and he thought, I'm going to stick with my changes that I've pre-planned. But in my opinion, it was a bad mistake, and I think he's got to react to the game stat. And even though it happened in a split second, you have to have the ability to change your mind in that split second. And he did it with Spence, but he didn't do it with the other players, and I think that was a mistake.
Yeah. A couple of players that come out with credit from this game, in my opinion: Ben Davies, Radu Dragusin, and most importantly, Fraser Forster. I mean, what saves he was making. I think 5 saves on the day, probably our man the match. And you've got Radu and Ben, who carry on this great partnership that they're forming. I thought both of them, Fulham had so many chances, but it would have been a lot more if it wasn't for Radu and Ben Davies, both of them really putting their bodies on the line, important blocks, important challenges, important interceptions. I think those 3 players were probably the only players that come out with a lot of credit during this game.
In terms of an overall good performance, I have to agree. I thought Davies in the first half was very much our best player. Like, the amount of last-minute interceptions he made was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. There was a couple moments, like the moment where Iwobi hit the bar. They had very similar moments to that in that first half, where Ben Davies was just nicking the ball ahead of the Fulham players and just making these really crucial interceptions, which meant that we didn't concede more chances than we did. And I thought as much as Davies was probably our best player in the first half, I actually thought Radu was probably our best player in the second half. I thought he really stepped up, was really aerially dominant, and actually he was one of the ones trying to force the issue in that second half, winning the ball back aggressively, getting us back on the front foot, trying to get us back up the pitch, and also was unlucky maybe with a couple of chances from corners as well. He won a couple of headers and unfortunately didn't get them on target, but showed again how aerially aggressive he can be. And I thought in that second half, as much as Jimenez had a lot of joy in the first half, he didn't have much joy in the second half, and that was a lot to do with Radu Dragusin, in my opinion. Forster made some brilliant saves. I thought that save from Jimenez in the first half, absolutely brilliant. Brilliant one-handed save. Again, very similar to what I've been saying about Forster. He just makes himself so big, and because he's a big guy, it hits him. And I felt a lot of the saves are basically that. You think of the save against Iwobi when he twisted and volleyed, just to get back Forster making himself big, and because he's 6'6", he covers a lot of the goal. I thought that Tete, or was it a Diop header at the back post? It just hits Forster's knee, does brilliantly. To be fair, the save from Jimenez was a brilliant one-handed save, so I'll give him a lot of credit for that one. There was one where he jumped at Jimenez's feet in the first half as well, when he looked to get in behind. Really good anticipation there. So some really big saves at big moments, but it's all about him just making himself really, really big and trying to cover the goal. And look, that's his strength, and he made absolute use of it yesterday. So big up to Fraser. Did really, really well. And but there was one moment, wasn't there, playing out the back was it the first half? He tried to play it to Basuma, and what was really frustrating about that moment is he had Radu to his right completely free. He tries the more difficult pass for no reason into Basuma, guts it all wrong, and it nearly costs us, but thankfully.
And probably got in at half time. It's like, I don't need you to be Maldini or what's the other player he said? I can't remember, but yeah, just get it simple. And I think he did that for the rest of the game pretty much.
Yeah, he did. And I think he stepped in last couple games and done really well. So fair play to Fraser.
You've got to give him a lot of credit, because the amount of people that were so worried about, including myself, that were worried about him stepping in for Vicario, and he's probably going to cost us a lot of goals. He hasn't cost us any goals since he's come in. He's actually been brilliant, and probably one of the best players on the team. Him, Radu and Ben Davies have probably been our best 3 players over the last 3 games.
Yeah, and it's mad to think about when you talk about this performance, you talk about narratives surrounding certain players, and our best 3 players in this game were probably Forster, Radu and Davies, and 4th was maybe Werner in the front line. And he had a really not strong. I don't think he had a strong showing, to be honest, but I think he had a couple of moments, as I say.
He was better than the other two, put it
Yeah,
that
he was probably
way.
better than the other two. Maybe because he was fresher, I don't know, but because the other two have been playing a lot
But
recently.
I felt like he was the only one with a willingness to go and actually have a go and have a run at their defenders and their fullbacks. I feel like Brennan Johnson was pretty much anonymous apart from the goal that he scored. And Sonny, Sonny's got to score that in the first few minutes, by the way.
He had a couple, didn't he? Because he had that chance in the first few minutes from a mistake, and then there was another one where, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen. It wasn't a match of the day, so maybe it wasn't as good as chance as I remember it. But wasn't there like a back pass or a bad touch by a Fulham player, and Sonny pounced on it? And he tried to go around the keeper, and I think Leno gets it. Well, actually, because I haven't seen that back. I've only literally just seen that live because there wasn't a highlights package.
It would have been. It would have been like a half chance, really. I don't think he had any right. I mean, he could have dinked it over the keeper. It would have been an unbelievable effort if he did that.
From where I was seeing, it looked like a big chance, but clearly it wasn't because I haven't seen it on any of the highlights packages, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's basically like you said. You know, the keeper comes for it. Sonny.
Was it a back pass? I can't remember.
I think it was. I think it was a bad touch from a Fulham player, and it finds Son in the box, and he could have taken it around the keeper, or he could have dinked it around the keeper, but it got gobbled up, and it was a poor effort from Sonny not to dink it over the keeper. But yeah, I mean, someone of Sonny's quality, you could expect them to get it in, but it was a very hard chance. He was very close to the keeper.
Yeah, and also to be fair to Son, like he hasn't been playing up. He played up front one game this season against Everton, which he did. Well, he scored. He did quite well, but hasn't played up front at all this season. We've clearly moved him back out wide, and the decision to play him up front wasn't something that's been like planned this week or something. Like we haven't decided. You know what? We're giving Solanke a rest, and we're going to just put Son up front in training so he can get back up to speed in that position. It was literally a decision made just before kickoff, where Solanke turned up for the game and he was deemed too ill to play, so we've just stuck with Sonny up front. And he did struggle, and he was clearly physically, whenever we got the ball to feet, Bassi and Diop were just bullying him off the ball every single time. And in terms of threats in behind, there was a couple of times where he actually did make good runs, and the pass was just like a little too ahead of him or just wasn't quite right. And if you're not going to find him in those moments, he's not going to be one of those players who is going to hold up the ball or anything like that. So it was a big struggle for Son. I thought he was a bit better out wide. As I said, there was that beautiful ball in the last minute, which could have been on a plate if there was a striker in the box, but there wasn't. But unfortunately, still couldn't make a difference. But yeah, it wasn't his best game.
But I think it was clearly evident from the first half that he wasn't going to get any joy in that number 9 position unless he was going to gobble up, because the only joy he was getting was from Fulham mistakes.
Yeah, which is funny because last year we beat Fulham with him up front at home, but both those goals came from Fulham mistakes.
Yeah, and those were the only joys we were getting from Fulham mistakes, right? So I think it was quite evident to me that he wasn't going to get any joy in the number 9. So I was calling for Djed to come on at half-time in the false 9 and then move Sonny back out to the left or to the right, whichever way. But then I also was saying that Werner was probably our best-looking attacker, so I didn't know which change to make. But I knew Sonny had to come out of the 9, and I knew someone more physical had to be in the 9 because Bassi and Diop, they're such physical defenders, and they were just doing a number on him. And Ange didn't do it. I don't see how like a lot of people can see what's happening on the pitch, and Ange doesn't have the foresight to swing the game or to make these changes to swing things in our favour. And it's a number of times now we're seeing game management from Ange Postecoglou that's not really being up to scratch. And you're looking at these performances. I keep adding performances on there now, and it keeps kind of the same kind of thing, where it's the Ipswich game, the second half of Brighton, the Palace game, now this game. It's just nowhere near good enough, and these performances are like building up, aren't they? This
one I have a bit more sympathy with Ange than the other ones, just because he didn't really have too many options to change it. I know he'd had a few on the bench which he didn't turn to until very late on. Clearly, Djed wanted a rest, but when it comes to options on the bench, only one player on the bench had ever started a Premier League game, and that was only 2 players on the bench had ever started a Premier League game for Tottenham, and that was at all, I think, and that was Reguilon, who was never going to come on, and Djed. And we have a lot of injuries at the moment. With Solanke coming out the team as well, that would have been a big blow before the game. We have 8 injuries to players who would have been in that squad.
Yeah, but is that actually an excuse though? Like, we only have players on the bench who haven't started a Premier League game. I mean, these players like Bergvall and Gray, we were told that they're here because they're good enough and they're going to make an impact this season, and we didn't sign a midfielder because of it. So if players are tired, use your squad a bit better and start these players then if you think they're good enough.
Yes, no, that's a fair comment. I'm just saying, when we're asking Ange to go change the game and win the game, like, I don't think, well, when I look at that bench, I necessarily think he's got the tools on that day to do it necessarily. You could have said, well, why not just give it a go? And that's fair enough. Why not just change it? But I don't think, like, I think the changes he made with 10 minutes to go, when down to 10 minutes, I think he got those wrong. But I also think, like, I don't necessarily look at the bench and think, oh, Ange, you've got to change, you've got to bring these people on. They would definitely have won the game, or they, like, I can understand, like, Ange in that situation, looking at the what we have to offer on the bench and not thinking that they were definitely going to change it for the better with what we had, unfortunately, just because of the injuries that we do have. And I understand what your point, and I think you make a good point. We've signed Gray, we've signed Bergvall. These players have played Europa League games, and you can, whether you think they've been good or not, I think they've shown enough to suggest that they can come on in these games and be a part of the team, and maybe be at the very least be fresher.
Reason, aren't they here for this very reason?
At the very least, be fresher than the players that were currently on the pitch and add a bit more energy. So yeah, I agree with you that if you're not going to play these players at these points, then why are they here? They should be coming into the team. Albeit Maddison and Basuma didn't start on the weekend. So, on midweek against Roma. So, that maybe that's why he kept them on. Obviously, he took Maddison off with 10 minutes to go for Bergvall, and I think that was a mistake in itself. But I don't blame him for not starting him. But when you've got this amount of injuries, I understand it's very difficult. Like, I understand it's no excuse for not using those players, but I do think it's part of an excuse for why we struggled badly to change the game in this specific game, just because he was hamstrung with his options in terms of actual game changes, that in terms of freshening things up from a point of view where you're bringing on players where the drop-off probably won't be as bad as the players on the pitch. I do have a bit of sympathy with that, but when it comes to Gray and Bergvall, we have to use them more in the Premier League, 100%. I completely agree with that. They're here, they're part of the squad, and you've decided we signed them for, especially Gray, for decent money in the summer, so use them. And I know he will argue he brought them on, but he brought them on with 10 minutes to go. Bring them on before, give them an opportunity, and I hope to see them more on Thursday.
Or even start them. Why not? We've got so many games coming thick and fast now. Every 3 or 4 days we've got a game. The team is looking so tired, particularly the fullbacks in Udogie and Pedro Porro. And why not? If Reguilon's here and you can put him on the bench, why can't you bring him on in a Premier League game? Isn't that more stubbornness from Ange to not play Reguilon? Because it's not like he's not adequate to play in the Premier League. We saw him have good minutes and good moments for Brentford last year. We saw him have good minutes and moments for Manchester United last year. So if players are out on their feet and they can't do the job that's being asked of them, why can't you bring on someone like Reguilon?
You have to ask Ange that.
But doesn't it makes no sense. He's here. We're paying him wages. And he's on the bench.
Well, obviously, he's one of the players that we didn't decide to keep. He's just here.
Yeah.
So he's not one that's trusted, albeit we have put him on the bench. So if you put him on the bench, that's because, at the very least, he's a worst case scenario that you could play if need be. I don't know what that worst case scenario is. Maybe he didn't feel like it was the worst case scenario yesterday, but I think he's a bit different to the likes of Spence, Gray and Bergvall, where they're here because we've kept them here and we signed them, and Lancashire as well, because we decided not to send them out on loan because we want them actively part of the squad. Reguilon's here because we couldn't get rid of him and we tried to get rid of him. But I think you make a good point. He's on the bench. If he's on the bench, he's an option, and you might as well use him. Again, I don't know if he would have changed much, but yeah, I understand.
No, but I know. You never know if these players are going to change much or not. But it's obviously going to help us if we've got fresher players on the pitch. Reguilon hasn't played a minute all season. Like, surely he's going to be fresh, and he probably wants to play to find himself a new club in the winter. Spence as well. He's going to be fresh. He's going to be chomping at the bit. He's probably been dying to play. He's hardly played all season. So at least get fresher legs on. If you're bemoaning the fact that the players are so tired and they're being overplayed and we're short on numbers, play the players that are fresh. That's all I'm asking for. Is that so much to ask?
No, I don't disagree with that.
But yeah, it was just another shocking performance in my opinion yesterday. If you look at the stats, I mean, it did tell pretty much the story of the game in my opinion. We did get them on possession, so we won the possession stats again, 51% to 49%. XG was 1.58 to them, 0.78 to us, and they created 3 big chances. We created 2 big chances, which I'm not really sure how they create that big chances stat, because I'm pretty sure they had more than 3 big chances.
It depends what you count as a big chance.
That's what I'm saying. So
it's the Jimenez one, which forced to saved. Wasn't the goal. That wasn't a big chance. To be fair, it's actually a really good goal.
Yeah.
Maybe the Jimenez one, maybe the Iwobi one, and maybe the Jimenez one where he got in behind and forced that to dive at his feet. To be fair, the other ones weren't massive chances. They were chances. Don't get me wrong, and there were chances to score, but it wasn't like sitters, which maybe the Jimenez one was. When you look at I think the big chances we had, they were probably sitters. Son's
in the first minute,
and the Johnson goal, which was a very good chance.
Yeah, and Brennan Johnson, it's just classic Brennan, isn't it? Like, he did nothing for pretty much 90 minutes, but he's there at that moment to score the goal. Nice finish as well.
And yeah, to give the team a little bit of credit, because we clearly struggled yesterday, no doubt about it. And it wasn't a good performance, but even in that moment where I think when we scored, it was probably Fulham's best moment of the game, I would say. That was probably one of the moments they were most on top.
Such against the run of play.
It was against the run of play, but it was a good team goal. It was actually, if you look at the goal back, it was actually really good movement, good interplay between Johnson, Maddison, to Werner, and then Werner makes a really good cross to the back post to Brennan.
It was pretty much our only good move of the game, though.
I know, I'm just saying, even in our worst moment, against a good team where we're struggling to really get any sort of possession, we were able to put a move together and score a really good goal. And that shows to me that even when we're struggling, one of our biggest struggles, we can still put a move together of quality like that. And that was slightly encouraging, at least.
It does make me worry about these. I mean, I kept saying it in the last week. Like, if we're struggling for numbers, if we're looking this leggy at this early on in December, I'm really worried about this month coming up. I really
hopefully
am. I know for the next game, Solanke should be back, Romero should be back, and there's one other.
Decky will be off
and
the bench,
Decky
hopefully.
will be a bit rested, and there's one other that could be back.
Chelsea.
Yeah, maybe for Chelsea, yeah. But I'm talking about Bournemouth. I think there was one more that could be back for Bournemouth. I can't remember who it is.
Mikey Moore? I don't know.
Anyway, so you probably have Romero. I mean, we're not even desperate for Romero right now. that's the truth. But we are desperate.
I think he would help.
We are desperate for Dom Solanke because we missed him massively yesterday. Oh my God, we missed Solanke yesterday. And it just showed yesterday how important Solanke is to the team, because there was just a lack of presence up front for us. And you're looking at the league table now. We are 7th. We are 5 points off Arsenal and Chelsea in 2nd and 3rd. And we are 2 points above Bournemouth in 13th. So, it's a very, very fine line in terms of how well we do over the next couple of games, of whether we drop or we can stay afloat with the teams in and around us. And everyone's got big games, but Spurs in the next 2 games, we got Bournemouth away and Chelsea at home, and they're such big games now, such big games. We needed to get 3 points yesterday because not many teams go to Bournemouth and win, and Chelsea are looking good at the moment. So I mean, I can't really, with the way we're playing at the moment in terms of up and down, up and down, up and down, and with the injuries and how tired we look, I can't see us getting points in these games.
We can get points. I think Tottenham, that's the nature of Spurs. After a bad game, you can't see us getting points, and after a good game, you think, oh, there's points to be had here.
Yep, I'm just saying because of how tired we're looking.
Yeah, but we've got 5 days recovery. Look, just because you look tired in this game doesn't mean every game we're going to look tired.
We looked tired on Thursday. We looked tired yesterday. I don't know how they recover themselves to play another 2 set of games in the space of 4 days.
Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, 100%. Romero will be back. Solanke, I don't know if Romero will be back. Hopefully Romero will be back. Solanke will be back. Hopefully Decky's well rested as well. And we've got a bit of a longer recovery than Thursday, Sunday, 5 days. So we've got a couple of extra days. That could make a bit of a difference as well. So I think we definitely have the ability to put in a good performance away at Bournemouth, no doubt about it. Not saying we'll definitely win, because Bournemouth are clearly a very good side at home. They've beaten City, they've beaten Arsenal at home, but they did just lose to Brighton last week at home as well. So they're not unbeatable at home. But they're a very good team, of course. There's a lot of very good teams in this Premier League, but we're a good team as well when we're at our best. And hopefully, having Solanke back can make a big difference. And obviously, going back to his old club as well, he'll be hopefully that little bit of extra motivation. Maybe he can do something. We'll see if he makes changes at fullback and whatnot. Obviously, after a poor performance and poor result, again, I always say it, after a performance like that, it's hard to see, how things improve, and then we have a good display, and everyone's surprised. I think at the moment we're very much struggling to put a string of 2 good performances together. What the reason is for that is, I'm probably a mix of things, but probably a long injury list, and probably because of how intense our way of playing is as well. And Andrew's got to look at that. And at the moment, I don't know whether he's stubborn or he's trying to fix things and it's not working or what's happening, but we are struggling to put a string of 2 games together where we're looking good in both games. That's reality at the moment. And so when you extrapolate that to this week, how are we going to get 2 wins against Bournemouth and Chelsea? We're not going to. I don't think we will get 2 wins out of Bournemouth and Chelsea. But can we win one of those games? No doubt about it. Of course we can.
You got no doubt about it. We'll win one of the games.
I said, can we win one of those games?
You think we can? Of course we can. Anyone can win any game on any given day. But
no, you said I don't see it, which means we can't.
I don't see it. I don't see it. And just because I don't see it doesn't mean it won't happen or it can't happen.
Just because I can see it doesn't mean it will happen.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think it will happen.
I look
at these 2 teams that we're playing against, Bournemouth and Chelsea. They're both going to be really aggressive in both these games, and I feel like whenever we come up against a team that's really aggressive and really wants it, we come up short. I think that's happened all season.
Whenever we come up against, well, not necessarily, not always. Villa are a very aggressive team. We managed to beat them. Like depends. Like Brentford are a very aggressive team. We beat them as well. Depends what. I don't know. A lot of teams are aggressive in this league. Mm-hmm. Bournemouth are a good team. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we're definitely going to win that game. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if we do. I think they're aggressive, but they also, they're not unbeatable at home. We can beat them. We've got better players. We look very tired on Sunday, but maybe with a bit of a longer recovery, that will change on Thursday.
What was your prediction for that game?
2-2.
2-2. So you don't think we're going to win?
Huh? I think we can win.
Yeah. And Chelsea at home will be a very difficult game as well. I mean, these 2 games are massive.
Home, they haven't won too many big games.
Yeah, but we're also on a run of 3 games without a win at home.
That needs to change
against teams that we should be beating, teams that we beat last season. We beat Fulham at home last season. Yeah, I know it's a difficult game, but we beat them, and we lost to Ipswich. I can't remember the last time we lost to a promoted side at home.
Yeah, but this season. There's a lot of surprise results around the whole Premier League. Yeah, it's very up and down, not just for us. I think it's so tight. The quality gap is clearly closing. I think that's fair for all to see. But when we're at our best, I don't think there's many teams as good as us when we're at our best. But can we keep us? Can we keep it there for a sustained period? That's the big question. Not how good are we. It's how often can we stay at that good period, at that good level.
Well, at the moment, it's once every other game.
Yeah.
Let's hope it.
But it's still 13 games. There's still so much football.
Yeah, there is so much football to play. And only Tottenham, right? Only Tottenham can score the most goals in the Premier League after 13 games and concede like the 3rd least and be sitting 7th in the league. Mm-hmm. It's only Tottenham, classic man, I swear. And bloody only Tottenham as well. Tom Kearney scores his first away goal in like 14 years or something stupid like that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
14 years, 769 days.
Wow. It was a good goal.
It was a good goal. It took deflection though, didn't it?
Did it?
Yeah, I think it did.
Right in the corner. Of all the chances they scored,
that was the
one.
hardest one.
That was the one. We didn't talk about the red card. Obviously, it was definitely red card.
Oh man, I don't know how the ref didn't see that in real time.
Madison saw it straight away, didn't he? He went right over
that
the referee.
That was a crazy challenge. That could have injured him, man. That was a really nasty challenge, and he was complaining as well, being like it shouldn't have been a yellow card. Mm-hmm. And I was like, come on, man, that was a straight red.
Definite red. But going back to their goal, what was frustrating is for all the complaints about we're too open and whatever, and the chances that Fulham had in this game. You actually look at the goal. I think there were like 8 Spurs players in the box. We actually had numbers back for that goal. So the one moment they actually scored was probably the moment we were like most defensively set, which is quite frustrating, but it is what it is.
Is what it is. That was our match review as Spurs drew with Fulham 1 goal apiece.